drone successfully targeted 2 Ural trucks. 1 tank, a Mista S self-propelled howitzer, an armored vehicle resembling the K-5394-9 Typhoon Akhmat, and a BTR-50 tracked armored personnel carrier. This incident, marked by precision strikes and strategic maneuvers, showcases the relentless determination of Ukrainian forces in the face of adversity. Join us as we delve into this pivotal moment, highlighting the skill and courage of Ukrainian FPV drone pilots in the Ukraine-Russia war. All right, let's dive in. The Special Operations Forces Command confirmed this extraordinary achievement, detailing the destruction of 2 tanks, a TOS-1A Soldsetsbyok heavy flamethrower system, and 3 armored combat vehicles. Using their FPV drones, these soldiers have successfully destroyed 6 vehicles and eliminated 13 Russian infantrymen. Their precision and strategic acumen have proven to be game changers on the battlefield. Soldiers of the 14th Mechanized Brigade previously destroyed the Russian Buk M12 SAM systems 9A310 M12 Talar in the east. Reconnaissance drones had spotted 4 enemy D-30 howitzers and 2 D-20 howitzers on the outskirts of the city during a night overflight. In the morning, FPV drones launched a successful attack, destroying the positions of the Russian towed artillery. Soldiers of the 46th Air Mobile Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine were credited with the successful mission. Their contribution to the war effort cannot be understated. Since the start of the invasion, Russia has suffered significant losses in armored vehicles, with over 2,600 main battle tanks and 4,900 other armored vehicles destroyed. While Russian forces continue their incremental advances along the front line, Wednesday's personnel losses marked the 6th highest since the war began. Diving deeper into the numbers, Ukraine asserts that Russia has lost 58 drones, 1 cruise missile, 56 cars and cisterns, and 12 pieces of special equipment. A significant blow came from a drone strike on the patrol ship Sergei Kotov near the Kerch Strait, further impacting Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Tuesday alone witnessed a reported total of 241 Russian equipment losses, according to Kyiv. This surge hasn't been seen since February 18th, reflecting the intensity and challenges faced by both sides. It's crucial to approach casualty counts and equipment losses with caution, as experts suggest both sides may inflate their figures. However, Ukraine's counts are generally considered more reliable, with Western governments offering lower estimates.
There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the fighters of the Black Fox Brigade showed the moment of the destruction of 2 enemy BM-21 Grad multiple launch rocket systems. Ukrainian military Black Fox brigades have reportedly adopted an innovative approach using drones to precisely target and destroy enemy equipment. In the footage shown, we first see how the Russian Grad multiple launch rocket system fires a full salvo of missiles at Ukrainian military positions. Next, we see how Russian equipment leaves the firing position and returns to its base where, with the help of a drone, we can see from a bird's eye view the location of Russian forces in one of the settlements of the Donetsk region. There was great news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the armed forces of Ukraine ambushed a Russian convoy consisting of tanks and armored vehicles. The armed forces of Ukraine dealt a powerful blow to the convoy of equipment with the invaders. It is reported that the armed forces of Ukraine made a good ambush on the Russian column of enemy equipment along with the Russian landing. As reported, there are no losses among the Ukrainian defenders, there are several lightly wounded and among the occupiers there are significant losses in armored vehicles and personnel. More detailed data of the operation are being explored, but at the moment it is known from intercepted enemy conversations that the enemy army has been reduced by 8 Russians as well as by 3 units of armored combat vehicles. There was excellent news from the Zaporozhye direction, namely a Russian tank breakthrough occurred where, during a breakthrough of the Ukrainian defense, a Russian tank was blown up by an anti-tank mine, as a result of which the ammunition detonated. The Ukrainian military reportedly demonstrated its readiness and foresight by proactively planting anti-tank mines on a road behind enemy lines. This strategic decision was determined not only by knowledge of the terrain, but also by the analysis of intelligence information about possible enemy routes. The explosion of a Russian tank served as a striking example of the effectiveness of such security measures. Excellent news from the Donetsk direction appeared, namely, the fighters of the Shadow unit showed the moment how the Ukrainian FPV drone strikes the Russian BAMP and its crew in the vicinity of Adeka. It is reported that the fighters of the armed forces of Ukraine showed a video shot by 2 unmanned aerial vehicles, namely the Observer and FPV drone itself. First, shots are shown how the Russian armored vehicle rides along the forest plantation, and at that moment the Ukrainian FPV drone flows into it. But the consequences of the blows turned out to be insignificant, so it continued the movement. There was excellent news from the Zaporozhye direction, namely soldiers of the 65th Separate Mechanized Brigade, using the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system, destroyed the Russian Strela-10 anti-aircraft missile system. It is reported that the modern Russian missile system Strela-10 did not hit our reconnaissance drone with its missile cost. The Ukrainian military was lucky, having noticed a rocket explosion nearby, not being afraid of the second launch, but following the missile's trail to find and track where this complex had disappeared to. And immediately the Ukrainian armed forces sent a salvo in his direction using the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system to eliminate the enemy target. There was excellent news from the Lugansk direction, namely soldiers of the 63rd Separate Mechanized Brigade showed a video of a Russian transport convoy moving through a vulnerable zone, and Russian military personnel moving in unarmored vehicles such as a Ural-type truck in the vicinity of the village of Kremenai. The convoy is reportedly being observed by a Ukrainian first-person view FPV drone, which then attacks a Ural-type truck. The drone accurately hits a Russian truck, causing it to burst into flames. This initial impact causes chaos among the crew and soldiers, who begin to flee in panic. While the first drone continues to film the scene, a second drone enters the frame. This second drone demonstrates amazing skill and precision by targeting the fuel tank of a Ural truck. On impact, flames erupted from the fuel tank and engulfed the truck. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the soldiers of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade showed the moment how, with the help of an FPV kamikaze drone, they destroyed the positions of the invaders from which fire was fired at the positions of the Ukrainian military near Avdiivsky Koksofim. It is reported that the Ukrainian military successfully neutralized the crew of an anti-tank missile system of the Russian invaders using an FPV kamikaze drone. As a result of this operation, 1 occupier was killed and 3 were injured. The video, shot by 2 unmanned aerial vehicles, an observer and the kamikaze drone itself, is clear evidence of this incident. First, footage taken from a drone shows how a kamikaze drone explodes on the invaders in one of the Koksofim. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the soldiers of the 73 Naval Special Operations Center showed the moment of the destruction of 2 enemy BAM-20. 1 Grad multiple launch rocket systems and the moment of the detonation of ammunition from the damaged equipment of the Russian occupiers. It is reported that fighters of the Ukrainian armed forces have introduced an innovative approach using FPV kamikaze drones to accurately destroy enemy equipment. Multiple launch rocket systems such as Grad pose a serious threat to Ukrainian troops, especially when they actively attack positions and fortified areas. However, thanks to the actions of soldiers of the Ukrainian armed forces and the use of an FPV kamikaze drone, it was possible to accurately neutralize this threat. The video shot by an unmanned aerial vehicle shows the moment of impact on two Grad rocket systems, which resulted in powerful explosions, scattering of shells, and the complete destruction of enemy equipment. The FPV drone operator demonstrated a high level of skill in adjusting fire and achieving a precise hit, which led to catastrophic consequences for enemy equipment and crew. This episode also highlights the importance of intelligence work and coordination among various military units to effectively counter enemy threats.
And here's an ATGM Stugna P missile nearly hitting a Russian APC. The Russians try to dig in at one of the settlements in the Avdiivka region. A dozen soldiers disembark on the village's outskirts. An unpleasant surprise awaits them on the other side of the village. As the soldiers leave the APC, it drives away. Notice this moment. A kamikaze drone flies over the APC. The drone continues to tail the Russian armored vehicle. The operator waits for the right moment to deliver a crushing blow. This is a Russian tank. And this is the same tank through the eyes of a kamikaze drone. A perfect hit. Are the Russians running out of tanks? This attack used only APCs. The first target is hit. While these Russians were thinking about what to do next, another drone came in. And here's the strike on the third APC. 3 drones at once. Another APC. Beautiful. And the final target. This one got the farthest, but it didn't save it from destruction. Excellent work. Facing such fierce resistance, the Russians decide to hide their APC in a garage. 3 kamikaze drones attack the target. The APC was burned. If you look closely, you can see its turret. The northern region. APCs fall into a trap. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone first blows up one. The second target. This APC thought it would find protection in a strip of forest. The APC is burned. And this is a strike on Russian logistical support, a truck carrying supplies. The Ukrainians sent a second drone. After meeting the truck, it flared up. Fire destroyed the entire vehicle. The Russians stopped to fix their truck. Ukrainians took advantage of the pause and delivered a devastating strike. Ukrainian drones come to spook the enemy. The first target is TM-62 anti-tank mines. What a powerful explosion! And these are fuel cans and Russian troop supplies. A bad combination. The fuel helped to destroy the Russian supplies. Nearby, Ukrainians found ammunition stores. And this is a fiery hello to Russians in a dugout. Nothing motivates leaving a position like flames blazing above a soldier's head. Ukrainians destroyed the Russian army not only with drones, but also with artillery. It all begins with tracking the enemy. This time, the Ukrainians discovered a control point with a Zala reconnaissance drone. The Ukrainians followed the Russians. When a vehicle with equipment arrives at the command post, the Ukrainians prepare HIMARS for a strike. One missile destroys the command post, the control point, and the equipment of the Russian army. And this is an operation to destroy a launch site for Russian kamikaze drones, Lancet. The video captures the moment one of the drones was launched. Now, the task for the Ukrainians is to track where the launch site will move, find the drone warehouse, and strike all of it using HIMARS. There were many of them. They exploded, burned, exploded again. The approach to the village turned into a tank graveyard. Now, let me show you these insane attacks. Two APCs entered the settlement early in the morning. One advances, the other covers with constant fire. The Ukrainians don't wait and counterattack. Now, the Ukrainians are using cluster bombs. The second APC already regrets getting into this mess. It tries to escape, but mines await ahead. The APC is immobilized. The kamikaze drone is already close. The APC is hit. These frames clearly show the mine barrier. A cluster bomb detonates. The Ukrainians did a great job that day. The Russians lost dozens of tanks. The stubbornness of the Russians often causes bewilderment. Here's another graveyard of just destroyed armored vehicles. 4 APCs and a tank. And here's a cargo truck and an armored car, Tiger. They both become easy prey for kamikaze drones. A Russian cargo truck brought ammunition to the positions, and the Ukrainians immediately destroyed it. What a pity. What could be more beautiful than a video of finishing off a Russian tank? A precise hit in the open hatch, fiery pillars from the burning powder. The Russian tank is destroyed. Another Russian tank. The drone again hits the target precisely. This piece of Russian junk is also destroyed. The Russians are moving the 2S-19 Masta-S self-propelled howitzer into the forest to hide it from Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. The Ukrainians, however, see all of this. When the howitzer is securely hidden, the Ukrainians launch a HIMARS missile at it. The target is eliminated. These are the frames of the work of a Russian UAV team. A Ukrainian drone tracked a Russian reconnaissance drone and followed it to the command post. Then, the HIMARS took over. The OSA anti-aircraft missile system is moving towards the forest to hide from the Ukrainians. As you might have guessed, the Russians didn't succeed. The 240mm Russian monster 2S-4 Tulip. This mortar fires 300-kilogram high explosive mines. Or rather, it did until it was hit by HIMARS. The third armored group, with an identical composition, consists of 2 tanks and 2 APCs. After the Russians received a harsh response from the Ukrainian armed forces, they abandoned their armored vehicles and fled. Kamikaze drones leave no hope for the Russians to return for their equipment. Take another look at this hit. The APC is engulfed in flames. A kamikaze drone drops explosives on the tank. Now, it's on fire too. A great fireworks display. This Russian APC decided to pave its own way. Relying on luck, the APC rushes towards the trench, but explodes on mines. This venture cost the Russians another APC. In the tree line, a Russian tank stops. A fatal mistake. After the first hit, it accelerates and charges towards the Ukrainians. The second hit immobilizes it. It immediately catches fire. Take a look at these flames. The Russian tank is destroyed. The negligence of this APC became fatal. Venturing into direct fire from the Ukrainian tank, there was no escape for it. One shot and the target is hit. Impact and explosion. This is how it looks from the tank's perspective. Such precise work deserves a thumbs up. Look at these heaps of destroyed Russian tanks. Over 24 in one place. Now let's move on to another front. A drone captures the burning tank. Its turret lies nearby. These are the first minutes after repelling the Russian attack. 100 meters from them is another graveyard of Russian armored vehicles. Another story. A Russian tank ventured out at night for an assault. After releasing several grenades, it's hit by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone, and the Russians abandon the tank. The drone tosses a grenade into the open hatch of the tank. The grenade fulfills its mission, and flames erupt from the tank's hatches. This fireworks display lights up everything within a radius of several hundred meters. The operator of this drone is a real ace. The hatch of the Russian tank was open less than half. Take another look at this throw. The tank catches fire. The propellants heat up, and a powerful explosion occurs. This Russian junk is disposed of. A kamikaze drone was on its tail. Hit confirmed. The tank, hit initially, was a T-90M. The drone attacked its rear turret. Another loss. Next up, the Madmen. A drone attacks an APC with a grill. The attack is successful. The APC stops. They were constantly firing irritatingly, shelling from different directions to discover the positions of the Ukrainians. After 10 days of continuous small attacks, the Russians decided they were ready for more. A column of armored vehicles is moving towards the AFU strongholds. The Ukrainian forces were warned of a possible attack. They met the occupiers with fire from all sides. The Russians wanted to break through the defense line, cross the railway track, enter the village, and gain a foothold. Before the assault, they decided to conduct a massive artillery preparation and put up camouflage smoke. The column was divided into 4 groups. At the head of each group rode tanks, which conducted continuous fire and breached mine barriers for less armored vehicles, beginning to work artillery defense forces to prevent enemy equipment to the positions. Tanks of the invaders have advanced. The second column loses 1 APC. Immediately after that, another APC is hit by an anti-tank missile. The first column is still moving towards the AFU strongholds. The first few tanks are blown up by mines. The confused crew decides to land the infantry right on the spot. The AFU is engaging them in combat. At this time, a tank from the third group explodes on a mine. It won't be a surprise for you to see such stupidity. But in the same place, another APC is blown up. The damaged tank detonates. The attack fails. There were many attacks like this in the following days. Here, the attack ended as quickly as it began. A huge column headed towards the Ukrainian soldiers' positions. The group of armored vehicles is met by artillery fire, attack drones, and minefields. Take a look to find out what ultimately became of them. Such meaty assaults took place for 4 days with small intervals. During these days, the AFU had already run out of food, water, and ammunition. The soldiers didn't sleep, so they were ordered to leave their positions and retreat. The village of Stepov was taken. But look at the storming of Avdiivka in winter, about a month ago. Try to see the difference. All this time, Ukrainian artillery does not stop working. Drone operators start hunting for infantry. And those who managed to land were already awaited by Ukrainian infantry and anti-tank systems. Drones were one of the most effective weapons in the defense of Avdiivka. As vehicles and columns move predictably, it becomes much easier to hit them. Here, we see a tank rolled over on the road. They didn't have to wait long for the Ukrainian kamikaze drone. And here, the drone hits right in the turret. The impact was so strong that it flew several meters away from the tank. Have another look. Another vehicle failed to reach its position. And this is the result of another Russian attack in the southern direction. A lot of broken tanks, BMPs, hundreds of bodies. The beauty of the Russian world. Avdiivka, Bakhmut, as well as Lysychansk are quite profitable for defense. But, thanks to something else, the enemy manages to advance. The Russians determine breakthrough areas, concentrate forces, and resources. As a rule, this happens on the flanks of fortified positions of the AFU. The Russians drove the launch site into the forest. In this video, they pick up a reconnaissance drone. The launch site is used not only for launching kamikaze drones, but also for launching any drones from a guide. A HIMARS missile perfectly hits the target. A powerful explosion occurs. Not typical for a missile. The kamikaze drones loaded into a truck detonated. Meanwhile, drones keep the Russians on their toes. Each grenade takes out a tank or an APC. A drone drops a grenade into a recently abandoned Russian tank. An explosion and gunpowder ignite. It's a precursor to a detonation. And there it is. -1 Russian tank. Now it's the turn of this Soviet junk, a T-62 tank from 1967. This is the kind of scrap the Russians are pulling to the front. Now it's the APC's turn. One grenade and $400,000 turns into scrap metal. A drone drops explosives into an APC. A fire starts immediately. A powerful explosion and detonation of ammunition occur. Am I the only one who likes watching such footage? That combination of fire and armored vehicles. There's something mesmerizing about it. It's target number 2's turn. The APC instantly ignites, and a powerful explosion follows immediately. I want to watch it again. Excellent. A crater is left in its place. Target 3. The flame gradually intensifies. Ammunition starts to detonate. It's beautiful. Here are 2 Russian tanks from one of the failed attacks I showed at the beginning. The Ukrainians target a T-90 tank. For the third target, Ukrainians waited for the right moment and then delivered a devastating blow with a kamikaze drone. And here's the 4th grad. The fifth target. Another strike by HIMARS. The Grad is destroyed. And that's not all. Another MLRS. And take a look at the fire after being hit. Another excellent fireworks display. This series concludes with this strike. Some very effective work. Take a look at this video. Is this not sheer madness? Russian tanks, armored personnel carriers, and soldiers are seemingly on a suicide mission against the Ukrainian defense. Today, we're going to dive into this madness and try to answer the question, what's wrong with the Russian army? It all starts with the insane attacks of Russian armored groups. The crew of this tank doesn't realize it's walked into a trap. Not only are Ukrainian soldiers to the left of the tank, but there are also surprises laid out on the road ahead. By the way, a Ukrainian soldier missed the tank with an anti-tank guided missile, but the mines saved the day. The second tank, not wanting to meet the same fate as its comrades, starts to reverse. The chances of escaping the battlefield seem slim, but they try anyway. The second Russian tank also explodes on the mines. The attack is a failure. Looks like another armored group. The first tank, equipped with a mine plow, leads the way, and for good reason. It hits the mines and stops. In these frames, Ukrainians finish off a previously halted Russian tank. A powerful explosion. No chance. I wonder what these Russians were discussing. The Ukrainians release a birdie with explosives. It hits the armored personnel carrier. The explosion easily tears it apart and scatters pieces of armor. A powerful blast. And how about this beauty? A kamikaze drone strikes an abandoned Russian armored personnel carrier. The damage causes a fire, and then an explosion. Beautiful footage of burning Russian junk. Here's another piece of Russian junk. The drone flies right inside. The fire does its job. When the drone returned, it found this. And who do we have here? This drone perfectly flies into the armored personnel carrier, and then it's the same old story. And here's another Russian tank. The operator perfectly executes the task and destroys the tank. There's another target nearby, also a tank. Watch how beautifully it explodes after the drone's hit. Another example. 2 Russian tanks were stopped by Ukrainian warriors. Ukrainians use kamikaze drones to finish them off completely. A Russian MTLB brought ammunition to the Russian positions. A Ukrainian drone manages to hit the armored personnel carrier before the Russians could unload the ammunition. And this Russian tank kicks off the season by launching its turret into space. After an encounter with a Ukrainian FPV drone, the tank's turret flies dozens of meters into the sky. Not bad. Ukrainian reconnaissance discovered 2 Russian tanks. They are hidden in this forest. The first hit proves fatal for one of the Russian tanks. The tank is torn apart like a tin can. In this place, a Russian tank hit mines and was immobilized, and then it awaited a quite obvious fate. Another Russian tank, and the same exact fate. Another one? Maybe it's time for us to create a ranking of the most beautiful destruction of Russian tanks by Ukrainian kamikaze drones. The legendary Buhanka and its adventures in Ukraine. Another one. It's so symbolic that it's standing near an Orthodox cross. And that's all. This is a trap that a Russian APC falls into. After the drone attack, it catches fire. The flames destroy it. another Russian tank. One attack was not enough. The second and third drones do not yield significant results. After the fourth hit, the tank's armor gives in. Here is the outcome. A grenade flies into the tank. A beautiful bonfire. The second target, an APC stuck in a trench. It too burns to the ground. A meat pot tried to escape from the battlefield. Unsuccessfully. This APC was simply abandoned by the Russians on the road. They themselves hid in the woods. Interesting tactic. Another runner. After being hit, it stops. The second drone attacks. And a third. The APC is on fire. The fourth drone, a control hit. This APC was standing, waiting for its reckoning. Notice the mines. They are laid in 3 rows. The APC is destroyed. Nearby, the Russians abandoned an APC. How perfectly the operator drops a grenade into this Russian piece of junk. Did you notice the mines littering the field through which the Russians conducted their attack? It burns brilliantly. Russian tanks were blowing up, burning, and exploding again. Let's take a closer look. Tanks, APCs, and airborne troops, all ready for battle, split into small groups. The Ukrainians are using cluster bombs. An ATGM hits a Russian APC. A tank deploys troops in an open field. Now, this APC is nothing more than a meat grinder. The second group is just hundreds of meters from Ukrainian positions. They were met with a surprise left overnight. Pay attention to this synchronization. And these are the daredevils who went on solo attacks. Pure madness. The third group consists of APCs and the madmen inside of them. A precise ATGM hit stops the Russian armored vehicle. A tank and 3 APCs. The Ukrainians are simply picking off tanks with javelins. Russian tanks are engulfed in flames. The attack goes on. APCs rush to take cover. It almost made it. But then, a Ukrainian kamikaze drone catches up with the APC. Now, check out this video. This column was just decimated. Ukrainians strike with cluster bombs to destroy the enemy's manpower. It's rather effective. This APC made an unforgivable mistake. From just 10 to 20 meters away, Ukrainians destroy it with an RPG shot. Such bravery deserves a like. The APC is engulfed in flames. The operator decides to move the drone to a safe distance, just in time. A powerful explosion occurs. This is all that's left of the APC. The second attack. FPV drones are already heading towards their targets. The APC becomes the first target. Another hit. The APC is stopped. Now it's the tank's turn. A direct hit. The APC is finished off. It's engulfed in flames. Now it's the turn of a tank and an APC. The Ukrainians waited for the Russians to come into the line of fire. It was difficult to hit them at the moment. When the tank came out, the Ukrainians made a successful attack. The APC continued moving forward. This APC attacks in parallel. It openly rushes across the field. A second Ukrainian missile hits its target precisely. The APC comes to a complete stop near the tree line. A control hit. Attempt number 2. The armored transporter is knocked out right at the same spot. Another APC. At this moment, you can see the mines again. Now, the Ukrainians begin finishing off Russian tanks. Here, the Ukrainians finish off 2 tanks at once. One of the tanks explodes. Another tank. A very interesting engineering structure is located on its turret. Thus, the Russians tried to protect it from javelin missiles. But it's no obstacle for a drone. Reconnaissance discovered 2 SPG Gvozdika. A drone successfully attacks it. Ammunition detonates, causing a powerful explosion. This is the SPG Masta S, a costly toy of the Russian army. Its downside? The ammunition is stored inside. When hit, they often detonate. As was the case here, a drone hit the SPG, the shells heated up, and a powerful explosion occurred. AFU Reconnaissance discovered an EW system Palantin. This thing creates interference for drones. The first HIMARS missile lands nearby. The second missile hits more accurately. Shrapnel hits the EW system. This is the SAM system Buck 1M. The cost of such a weapon is tens of millions of dollars per unit. They often have one very significant flaw. They always explode very violently. The open type of missile storage makes them defenseless even against small shrapnel. Now, let's follow this loser. An FPV drone chases the target. Precise hit, instant fire. The loaf is burnt. This is what the destruction of a Russian APC looks like through the eyes of a Bradley gunner. And this is what it looks like from the outside. Under the cover of night, the Russians bring their APC to the positions. At dawn, a Bradley arrives and starts drilling holes into the Russian bucket. Gradually, the Bradley closes in on the Russian APC. These shots became fatal for it. The Ukrainians completely burned them down. Even the roof burned down. This unlucky one was also attacked. The armor was penetrated. Flames engulfed the APC. Now it's fully ablaze. It's wonderful to see. Another target. This APC got trapped, was stopped, and destroyed. One hit was enough to start a fire. The drone returns and discovers the debris that used to be this tub. Another hero, a tank nicknamed Kuzbas. The Russians tried to protect it from all sides. And maybe it could have withstood 1 or 2 more hits from a kamikaze drone, but it couldn't save it from a grenade. The fire did its job. Kuzbas burned to ashes. In this video, Ukrainian strike drones destroy what attacked the Ukrainians during the day. First, they burned a tank. And then a group of 3 units, a tank and 2 APCs. A perfect bonfire. Another tank. Some of the ammunition detonated, but it wasn't enough to tear the tank apart. This is what it all looks like the next day. This is the same place we saw in the previous video, where the drone was finishing off the Russian tanks. Yep, sometimes all that remains of a tank is a metal husk like this. Or as these 2 APCs changed color due to the high temperature of the fire. Everything inside incinerated. And here are the tanks from the beginning of the video. Let's return to the destruction of equipment. I've got more to show. The drone dives into its target. The APC is instantly engulfed in flames. In 30 minutes, the Russian APC was completely burned out. That's simply the amount of time it took the Ukrainians to replace the battery and return. The Russian T-90M tank failed in its attempt to cross the swampy terrain. After the first hit, it manages to reach solid ground, but the tank is already disabled. A drone's second hit. And a third. A modern Russian tank in flames. The story of this APC ended rather quickly. While the Russians were occupied with something else, Ukrainian kamikaze drones took turns delivering devastating blows. The APC burns to the ground. A similar situation befell this Russian tank. One drone was enough to set it on fire. And here are some more beautiful shots of burning Russian junk. And this T-80 was instantly reduced to molecules after encountering a drone. What idiot allowed this foolishness? Let me explain what happened here. The APC brought TM-62 anti-tank mines and unloaded them nearby. The fatal mistake was the delay. They should have retreated immediately. From the explosion, the APC did a sideways somersault. Powerful. These Russians thought that the night would help them hide from Ukrainian drones. Ukrainians modify kamikaze drones, installing night vision cameras in them. Take a look at how clearly the Russian APC is visible at night. The second hit. Excellent work. This Russian tank, after enduring 4 bombs to the engine compartment, is headed for the scrapyard. This Russian tank drives over mines and becomes an easy target for the Javelin anti-tank missile. A precise hit. The missile penetrates inside and ignites the propellants. The tank utterly destroyed. This tank joined the Russian army in 2022, but today, Ukrainians put an end to its tour on their lands. But these are not the only targets that Ukrainians have hit. 2 kamikaze drones destroyed this Strela 10 air defense system. And this is how HIMARS rockets struck the Grad MLRS. The second target was camouflaged, but that didn't hinder its detection and destruction. Another drone dives into it. The second APC. Instant destruction. Near the settlement, the Ukrainians stop a Russian tank. A beautiful fireworks show. The tank is destroyed. And these are two APCs whose destruction didn't make it on camera. A T-90M tank worth $4.5 million. The hit? And what a beautiful geyser of fire and sparks. The Russians start the second wave of attacks. This time, the columns split up, and the tanks attack one by one. The Ukrainians respond with a drone attack. The tank continues moving. It fires successfully. Ukrainian artillery hits very close, but misses. The tank releases smoke to hide from the targeted missile, to no avail. After the drone attack, the tank was abandoned. Right in the middle of the assault, the Ukrainians took this opportunity to attack the enemy. Thus, under the cover of a tank, the APCs advanced. At this moment, the Ukrainians managed to hit the tank. It flared up like a match. The APC also burned. Ukrainian operators prepared new kamikaze drones. 3 drones were directed at a Russian tank. The second hit. After the third, the tank stops. Up next were the APCs. The more precise work of the Ukrainian operator. The drone starts dropping grenade after grenade on the abandoned tank. The Russian armor succumbs to the onslaught. The tank catches fire and explodes. Pieces of scrap metal are all that's left of it. Minus a modern tank with modern defense, soldiers of the 11th Brigade of the NGU destroyed the newest Russian T-90 Proryv tank in Kherson region. The aerial reconnaissance team delivered a precise fire attack on the enemy tank, after which the ammunition detonated and the explosion tore off the turret. A beautiful fire show from a Russian BMD. The turret is torn off and thrown up to dozens of meters. How rare it is to see videos like this. A Leopard tank clashed in a duel with 2 Russian tanks. The accuracy of the German tank allowed him to hit the Russian tank at a distance of 1.5 kilometers. After the defeat, the Russians begin to retreat. Run along, little doggies. On the first day of the siege, the invaders took advantage of the position of the sun that shone in the eyes of the AFU and began to advance. These were the moments when the orcs were just approaching the city. The Russians attacked in waves. In each of these attacks, first went the tanks with infantry, then APCs with infantry. The Russian plan in such an attack was to break through with a few armored vehicles closer to the AFU positions and drop the infantry into the trenches. In most cases, they were covered by artillery or blown up by mines. Look at this footage taken by a Russian soldier during one of these attacks. We see a lot of Russian soldiers. One of them started filming the vehicles that were on their way to attack Avdiivka. At the same time, he's commenting on how powerful and strong they are. Let's find out what happened to them after a while. The equipment turned into a pile of metal. And the surviving infantry had to retreat to the nearest shelter where we can see some charred equipment and guns. This is one such reconnaissance. The column of occupants is moving towards the positions of the AFU. The first tank drives over a landmine. Look again at this detonation. Then, we see that some of them managed to break through a little further, but the same fate awaited them. The APC is spectacularly blown up by a kamikaze drone. But even so, the Russians tried to move forward, but were hit by more mines.
The Ukrainians managed to reach and strike with a drone even the tank that the Russians had damaged before the battle. About half an hour later, all the Russian tanks were knocked out and ablaze. The battlefield was shrouded in smoke. But let's get back to shape-charged projectiles. Interestingly, the Ukrainian algorithm works not only against Russian tanks, but also against any Russian armored vehicles. Take a look. The Russian APC-3 is carrying out a combat mission, attacking, firing at Ukrainian trenches, probably loaded with ammunition. But the Ukrainian FPV drone sneaked up from behind and hits it right in the turret. The APC exploded along with the ammunition. The shape-charged projectile easily penetrates the armor of any Russian armored vehicle. And this is the Russian self-propelled howitzer 2S-19. The FPV drone with a shape-charged projectile hits the howitzer from the front. The strike causes an instantaneous detonation of the ammunition. The drone easily penetrates the armor of the howitzer. Even if an immediate explosion doesn't occur, it will happen minutes later. Whether it's a howitzer or a tank, or even an abandoned but loaded with ammunition known a howitzer. But my favorite is the destruction of the Russian multiple launch rocket system, Solntsepek, which uses reactive thermobaric missiles. Look, this video was shot last summer. Solntsepek is on a combat mission. The installation is fully loaded with 24 rockets. The Ukrainian FPV drone hits it directly in the ignition mechanism. As a result of the hit, all the rockets exploded. And the two more Russian armored vehicles were on a mission. The first one exploded on a mine and was hit by a drone. The second one was simply abandoned in the middle of the road by a frightening crew. Then the Ukrainian FPV drone set it on fire. Engulfed in flames, the Russian armored personnel carrier burned brightly for a long time. This Russian APC was supposed to transport soldiers to the front line, but was blown up on a mine along with its ammunition. Another APC was following it and also exploded on a mine. Then all the ammunition inside detonated. What a sad fate awaits the Russians. These two Russian tanks were supposed to attack from a different direction, but the first tank exploded on a mine. The second tank felt the merciless strike of a Ukrainian drone. The attack failed. Another tank was hit by an FPV drone and caught fire. It's amazing how a few drones can halt any Russian invasion. Russians lost a lot of armored vehicles around the town of Krenki, but still couldn't reach their goal. Within the town limits, Russian tanks have no chance of avoiding defeat from ubiquitous Ukrainian drones. After infiltrating the town, the Russians set up a bunker in an abandoned house, but a HIMARS missile turns them into powder. Another house with Russians inside also turns into dust. And one more time. Krenki has already become a new graveyard for Russian tanks. In their attempt to eliminate the Ukrainian foothold, the Russians are losing more than expected. It's a big question. Can the Russian industry replenish such losses? This Ukrainian soldier shared a story of how he alone managed to thwart a Russian attack. After aerial reconnaissance spotted the advance of Russian armored vehicles, he used a javelin missile to destroy one APC and one tank. The crew of the leading tank fled. Then, Russians continued with 4 more APCs. The soldier disabled one of them with a javelin missile. The remaining APCs on the battlefield were burned using grenade-dropping methods. A tank battle occurred on the border between Russia and Ukraine. A pro-Ukrainian Russian group conducted a tank attack on the border checkpoint. Using several tanks, they invaded Russian territory and targeted fire-struck Russian border guards. The Russians did not expect the attack in this location, so frightened, they abandoned the border checkpoint and fled. But in attempting to advance further, one of the tanks hit a mine. The tank crew was forced to abandon the tank and return to the rear. Meanwhile, the Russians were contemplating how to repel the attack. They also wanted to take the damaged tank as a trophy, but concluded that evacuating the tank at the moment was impossible and decided to destroy it. The Russians had no other means to destroy the tank besides a grenade, but that proved to be sufficient. While the tank was burning, the Russians attempted to repel the invasion. They deployed a Su-34 aircraft equipped with heavy glide bombs FAB-250 and began bombing the border checkpoint on their territory. Look at how the bomb wings unfold. The Russians are not afraid to drop bombs on their own territory, destroying their infrastructure, just to stop the enemy's invasion as quickly as possible. Also, take a look at how a Russian army tank is shooting at the homes of Russian citizens, destroying them completely. The next day, another tank was set on fire, followed by the destruction of another APC. Aren't these wonderful results achieved by Ukrainian soldiers? Watch how skillfully the Ukrainian FPV drone, resembling a bee, selects its target for the strike. It managed to ignite the new Russian APC on the first attempt. Similar scenes are unfolding on other parts of the front line. For every kilometer they advance, the Russians lose hundreds of tanks and armored vehicles as well as thousands of soldiers. Losing equipment at such a rate, Russians will need at least 50 years to win this war. In 2 years of full-scale warfare, they haven't achieved a single one of their goals. Not a single one. Another interesting fact: when Russian soldiers abandon their armored vehicles, they usually seek shelter from Ukrainian FPV drones. This could be trenches or partially destroyed buildings,